Thanks, Cameron. Let's look at the numbers now. Our chief election analyst, Tom Connell, also backing up today. Tom, we've heard that the Liberal opponent in Curtin, Tom White, he's conceded. How have the Climate 200 candidates fared more broadly?
Pretty well when we look at the cities, first of all. So you alluded to Curtin. Look, we did call this last night, but always worth noting when candidates do concede things. So if we have a look at Perth, there's a couple we can look at here in terms of Climate 200. One is Curtin. You can see 75% counted, 53%. Look, still a narrow margin for Kate Chaney, but she's won that battle. What's interesting as well is when we look at the seat of Fremantle. So this is held by 2%. You can see another independent running for this seat. Now, this is close. What I'm going to stress here is this says 0% because this is an estimated two-candidate preferred. What we're waiting for here is the AEC to say, OK, we got it wrong. It's not Labor versus Liberal, it's Labor versus Independent, and then they distribute the preferences. Nonetheless, what we have so far is a preference distribution that gives Kate Hewlett 48%. On this, on 23.47% of the vote. The problem for her right now is the other vote that's coming in. We have a look here and we go to the postal votes so far. We get this one batch of postal votes counted on the night. There'll be more to come. About 4,000 have been counted. We'll go to the primary on this. You can see it's Labor Liberal. That's the contest that wants to do, but it's not. It's Kate Hewlett. She's only 14% so far on those postals, so well below. If that continues, clearly she won't be competitive. The caveat we'll give on that is we just want to see the actual preference flow. It could be drastically different to our estimate, so that's why we won't call that. But if it's similar to that and that preference, the postal rate continues, she can't win that seat effectively. There are other seats the Teals can win, though, when we're looking at the rest of the electorate. In New South Wales, the most likely was always going to be the seat of Bradfield, and right now they are in front. Nicolette Buller, you can see this is a very narrow margin of 1.4%. Again, the story, as we get to this stage of the campaign, often is what is to come in some of those other booths, in particular in postal. So this is the postal vote again, a batch that's come in. You can see 3,800 votes so far. If we look at the two-party preferred and how that's swinging, 2.3% towards the independent. So on those numbers, you say, OK, that's great for the independent. The problem is the overall catch-up here. You can see 2,200 to the Liberal candidate versus 1,500. So the actual votes there, we're seeing the Liberal candidate catch up on those postal votes. So we'll go back and see where the actual contest is at, if it will get me there. Essentially what they're going to have at that stage is catch up on the postals. I think they could get quite close. Absent vote, though, that favours independents, could get Nicolette Buller in front. So if I had to pick right now, I think you'd have the Climate Independent as a slight favourite to pick up that seat, but we need to see more vote. One area they could lose a seat, the one they're looking most dangerous in by a long way, is the seat of Goldstein. This is going to be an absolute cliffhanger. So again, looking at the vote here, I want to concentrate on the gap. There's a gap of 1,700 votes right now, actual votes, between Tim Wilson and Zoe Daniel. That's how much he's behind by. So if we go to the contest and see how that's actually playing out, we again go to the main amount of vote that is to come, and that is pre-poll. How has it come in? I should say postal. How has it come in so far? Again, a similar size batch of just under 4,000 votes. Look at the vote number. Don't worry about this, but the vote number. 1,300 to Zoe Daniel, 2,600 to Tim Wilson. So that gap of 1,700 has closed. It used to be before that 3,000. So it's closed by 1,300. In other words, if we get two more similar batches, you would see Tim Wilson move ahead. How much more postal vote do we have? We've got a pretty good idea. There'll be about 20,000 overall. In other words, Tim Wilson is likely to move ahead fairly solidly if this continues, if this rate continues. First postal batches can be deceptive. We want to see a second. He'd move ahead. There would be some chance then for Zoe Daniel to move back ahead again through those absents. But if he gets this sort of flow on postal, that lead might be too big. So if I have to pick a favourite right now, I would say probably just Tim Wilson. But I'm not going to stick my neck out because, again, these first postal batches can be somewhat deceptive. The other one I want to look at, Kieran, is Canberra. We haven't been forgotten from this election because there is one seat in play, and that is the seat of Bean. Look at this margin here, 0.6%. The big caveat here is, again, this is estimated. No one was predicting this contest, or the AEC didn't. David Smith up against Jesse Price. So this is just an estimated flow. We'll need to see how this actually happens. What happens, the AEC then recounts all of the ballots and distributes preferences knowing that Jesse Price will finish second. Once we have that, we'll know closer to exactly how it's flowing. The other caveat, of course, is the vote to come, so the postal could help David Smith on what's in so far, but it's not flowing as well for him as we saw for those Liberal candidates. So this is just too close right now. There are too many unknowns to make a prediction. But yeah, that's another one for the Climate 200 back candidate in the seat of Bean in Canberra.
Tom, what other seats are you watching? There's one that I wouldn't mind you having a look at, the seat of Menzies. Also, if you could give our viewers a sense of the Senate and the overall sort of national swing, where that is at in terms of the two-party swing.
Yeah, so for the Liberal Party, the main thing right now is hanging on to seats, not taking them. Bendigo is one seat the Nationals can get. We might look at that later on, but you requested the seat of Menzies, and I'm always happy to oblige, so let's get in and find it. So we saw on the night, initially there was a pretty decent lead to the Labor Party. It's come back from 5% to about 3%. I want to focus again on this lead. You can see the lead here. It's a bigger one. It's about 3,400 or so. So far on the vote coming in, there's two elements to this. There's actually still some pre-poll that's come in, but it hasn't actually been counted in terms of the 2CP. So that's one of the interesting things here. Doncaster East, if we have a look at this pre-poll booth, 15,500, and you can see here there are no votes because it hasn't come in at two-party preferred, but it has come in the primary. And you can see this is very different to the overall result in the electorate. It's a 9% swing, nearly 10% to Keith Wallahan. Now, I've done some numbers on the remaining pre-poll that's been counted at primary and not to candidate preferred. That would close the gap right up between Keith Wallahan and his opponent to something in the order of 400 or 500 votes. And then we'd be seeing exactly what happened again with postal. Now, so far that is flowing towards Keith Wallahan. Again, this is our first batch. Let's just go straight to two-party preferred. Again, we want to look at this number here, not so much the swing. 1758, 2138, closing by nearly 400 votes. So if that continues and those pre-poll votes come in as I expect on two-party preferred, we could see him possibly edge ahead on postals if they continue to flow that way. If they get worse, he won't get ahead. Even if he gets ahead, again, Absent could come back. So I would say Labor's the favourite here. And I've seen this seat called for Labor. But given how we're seeing that pre-poll that's in primary and not yet in two-candidate preferred behave, I'm just wary of calling that. So I'm happy to look more cautious on that. I'm not calling this seat just yet. And I do understand as well, Keith Wallahan ran a direct mail campaign that can boost a postal vote. So let's just watch that one. You mentioned as well the overall state of the House. Let's see where the seat count is at. This is pre, of course. And this is the situation now, so 7+ for Labor. Look, that number's not going to go down. There's no seats Labor look like they're going to lose from here. It's just whether they win some more. So that's their minimum. Right now, the question for the coalition is, can they squeak to get a 4 in front of them, which seems incredible, doesn't it? There are quite a few I think they can win back. I think they do get clearly a 4 in front of it. The seat of Casey they're ahead in, for example. I think they probably win the seat of Flinders, which looks complicated. But for now, they're on 36. Look, I think they get into the low 40s. The other interesting thing to watch, of course, is going to be the Senate. Now, look, a lot of numbers here. What I want to just say simply is this. Labor need to make up 3 overall to go from 25 to 28. Then they add the Greens 11, and that gives them a simple way to control the Senate. 39 controls the Senate. Then they don't have to do other deals with David Pocock, Jackie Lambie, whatever. So just keep that in mind. I'll go through 3 states and not overcomplicate things. Here in New South Wales, Labor had 2. They're clearly going to get at least 2 with 2.6 quotas. They're a decent chance there to get a 3rd. Having a look as well in Victoria here, you can see Labor 2, 2.4. They're not going to get an extra 1. When we go to Queensland, though, here's a clear pickup. They were on 1, so this is the 1 here. This is their quotas, 2.13. They will get 2, they won't get any more. That's clearly going to boost their Senate ranks. You can definitely tick that one up. South Australia, 2, and again at 2.6. So what happens at 2.6? Liberal Party will get 2, Labor will get 2, the Greens will get 1, and then Labor here would be in a battle against One Nation to get that final spot. That's going to be the case in probably 3 or 4 of the Senate races, Labor versus One Nation for that final one. I think Labor's a very good chance of at least getting to 27, getting 2 spots. 28 might be tight. Caveats on this is we're pretty early on in the count, Kieran, but that's the other element of this. Labor could end up, not control the Senate, not control, but only needing the Greens votes to get legislation passed.
Tom Connell, we will talk to you throughout the afternoon. Thank you.